Well, Nylea, I wouldn't get too ahead of yourself on that. I mean, first of all, it's not much to hand over one of the king's candidates, considering how hard finding someone with king's blood is. I mean, they basically just found the jackpot sweet and reeled in all, or at least a large chunk of blood samples and records from the entire city. We, unlike them, don't have that information. Finding someone with king's blood is going to be a difficult task, and we already know that they can't hang around with me. So handing us a symbiote that they know that we have very little chance of using isn't much of a give. Besides that, how do we even know that this is your friend Phileas? I mean, seriously, it's not like you guys can recognize each other. You all look the same. Well, Nylea replied, how exactly do you humans recognize each other? You all sort of just look the same. I sighed a little bit as she said it. Okay, I get it. I probably had that one coming, I replied, my head hung a little bit low. Yes, you most certainly did, Nylea replied. But along with being able to recognize one another, which, yes, we can do, we can also communicate telepathically, should we so choose to. I, for example, am having a very lovely conversation with Phileas right now. Apparently, some of the individuals working under Becky snuck Phileas out, according to the individuals that spoke to the cluster. The cluster? I said, as I cocked my eyebrow a bit. Yes, that is what we call ourselves when we are in large groups without hosts. We are referred to as a cluster. Okay, good to know, I replied. Well, anyways, Nylea said, returning to her story. According to Phileas, they said that they were putting in works a plan to overthrow Becky, and as part of this plan, they would most likely have to set half the symbiotes free. But before that could transpire, they needed assurance that their deal would be taken seriously. So they asked that one of the 4 king's candidates step forward and act as part of this exchange, being set free. They truthfully wanted to release the strongest of the 4 bloodlines, but they did not know if this deal was something to be trusted. However, the possibility of half of my race being set free was too good a deal to simply pass up altogether. After talking amongst themselves, they decided that the weakest of the 4 King's candidate bloodlines would be released to participate in this deal, along with their hatchling. So, as part of the deal, Phileas went along with the individuals attempting to sneak them out. They did so. After a short time, Phileas was placed into this container, and has been here for several days at least. It is hard to tell time with no methods to track it. Okay, so the story the symbiote's telling is the same as the story that the other guy is spewing. They want to cut a deal to get rid of Becky, and they're willing to pay a high price for it. Well, I suppose that does lead some credency to their little offer, but I'm still not exactly trusting of it, I said as I began looking over the tank, inspecting it, trying to see if there was anything suspicious about it. After a short time of looking it over, I decided that the tank was free and clear. There didn't appear to be any bugs, but just to be sure, I decided to leave the tank itself and only take the water and the symbiotes. I created a carrying container with liquid steel, pouring all of the symbiotes along with the water into it. Afterwards, I closed the door to the storage unit, and with spirits summoning a nice set of wings for me, I began making the flight home. So, Nylea, what exactly is the power of the fourth in line? The fourth king's candidate, that is. Oh yes, Nylea replied. I almost forgot to discuss it with you. This is one of the reasons that we are friends. We have many things in common, including the very basis of our abilities. Both myself and Phileas induce in our house the ability to produce an eternal fluid, a mucus. What? So, Phileas is another mucus maker, the same as you? Well, not the same as me. His is rather different, in a great number of ways, but is extraordinarily powerful nonetheless. It has to be in order to hold the title of fourth. It too is exceptionally versatile, but has its own set of standards and rules that are far different from my own. Oh, really? Yes. But it's actually rude to talk about the abilities of another syndicate, so I should probably keep it to myself, unless Phileas says otherwise. After all, Phileas is now in our custody, so there's no chance that him or his hatchling will be given out to any criminals. As such, I feel it's necessary that I abide by our standard customs, and that is to keep each bloodline's abilities private unless necessary for our own survival in combat situations. Oh, so you guys only reveal that you know each other's abilities if it actually comes up in some sort of confrontation, fight between you. Yes, unless the hosts that we bear find themselves at opposite ends of conflict. It's considered exceptionally rude to reveal knowledge of another symbiote. So, what about the other symbiotes that were mixed in, the hatchlings? I mean, none of them were in egg form, like the ones that were inside of the big ones. Well, that's because they were separated from hosts. Most likely, all of them are subject to being implanted into a host and then quickly removed. The same way that they removed one from you when you were at the hospital, remember? Holy crap. Yeah, I try not to. I had that guy feeling around inside my stomach. Yes, it's most likely that the original hosts of those symbiotes are long since dead. More of Becky's victims in her ongoing search for power. The idea of taking her down is very satisfying, but I'm just not sure it's worth it, especially if she's proving so much trouble in their overall organization. To be honest, it's like choosing between two devils, the devil you know and the devil you don't. Which one's worse? Truth be told, I don't really know, so it's kind of hard to make a decision. Well, I'm sure your friends will continue to weigh in once we return, Nylea replied. As soon we found ourselves back at my apartment, once again cloaking on my approach, so that I nor the container I was carrying could be seen. Making sure that no one was nearby, I made my way inside, opening the door and bringing inside the container, closing the door tightly behind me. As I heard several voices pipe up. Yo, dude, you back? Oh, I'm glad to hear it, Ned's voice called out. I was a little worried that, I was gonna turn on the news and hear about some massive explosion across the city. You got that right, Vicky replied, as both of them stood from their seats, walking over to greet me as I walked through the door. So what's the deal? What was the gift? Is that it? They said, looking to my side to see a floating orb, a fairly large one. Yeah, that's it. So, what the hell is it? Well, it's symbiotes. They apparently decided that a good way to make it look like the DLC genuine was to hand over some symbiotes, including one of the king's candidates. No way! For reals? Ned replied. Yeah, for reals, Ned. Actually, what's more helpful is the fluid that they were given to us in. Apparently, it's going to be our saving grace for Lake. All I have to do is add it to the water that I've already collected in my fish tank, and apparently it'll make it a sustainable habitat for her, so long as I throw in some protein and stuff like that. Dude, awesome! So Nylea doesn't have to go looking for some new candidate? Oh, that's godsend. Hell, once your hatchling gets older, you could probably pick her back up. I mean, once he learns to, reason and stuff like that, Ned said, with a bright smile on his face. Oh, I almost forgot. You have more symbiotes, right? That means there's a good chance one might like me. Well, calm down, Ned. They just got here. Oh, come on. You can't help but let me have just this little bit of excitement. I mean, if you got a bunch of symbiotes, I could really get some powers and start helping you out, man. I know, Ned. But remember, they have to choose you, man. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you if they don't. So just try to stay optimistic, I said as I began heading for the fish tank.